Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Bank of the West is offering the 1% for the Planet checking account. It gives back to the planet at no cost to you, and there's no monthly service charge with any deposit per statement. Only from Bank of the West. Learn more at bankofthewest.com/1%. Additional conditions apply. Member FDIC.
The Bachelorette and Friends. From first love to happy ever after.
What's that?
From dating to dick pics.
Oh my. Oh no!
The Bachelorette and Friends. Oh, I love a good dick.
This podcast contains sexual references, coarse language, and adult themes from the beginning and throughout. It is not recommended for listeners under the age of 15.
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to the Bachelorette and Friends. I'm your host, Carla Anita Matiazzo, and today's guest is George Sargent. After completing a week of Year 10 work experience with Bathurst Broadcasters in 2017, George was offered his first program called The Weekend Wireless. Whilst contributing to his radio program, George carried out the duties of head prefect at St Stanley's College, Bathurst. During his time as head prefect, he was awarded many distinguished awards, most notable being the Australian Defence Force Long Tan Leadership and Teamwork Award, the Senior of the Year Award, and 2020 Youth Citizen of the Year nominee. Wow. To top off an already successful year, George was nominated as an Australian Commercial Radio Awards finalist and took out the Best Newcomer on Air category. Towards the end of 2019, George became host of the Talk of the Town program on 2BS, weekly drive program from 3 to 6 p.m. Currently, George hosts a brand new podcast, The Convo, conversations that educate, inspire, and entertain. Executive producers Grant and Shezzy Denya's top charting podcast, It's All True, sings in local music duo West of Town, teaches singing lessons, and works as a disability support worker in Bathurst. The young 19-year-old man has ambitions to continue working in the media industry, educating, inspiring, and entertaining audiences through his presenting and musical abilities. Welcome, George.
Oh, Carla, thank you so much for the intro. It's great to be on your podcast. I'm a huge fan of it. I love it.
Oh, thank you. Well, I guess it's mutual because I'm a fan of yours. This is working out well.
Oh, it's awesome. Here we go. Two fans in the one room. This is what happens. It gets pretty exciting, hey?
Yeah. Okay. So, to bring the podcasters and listeners up to speed, this podcast is based on the premise of my award-winning cabaret show, I was about to say Bachelorette. Well, that's wrong. The Bachelorette, there's always a catch, where I talk and sing about my first love and what I thought was happy ever after and everything in between. So let's start with your first crush, George. Now, for most of the guests, they've really had to scratch their heads to remember their first crush, but you're at an advantage because you're probably the youngest guest we have had on, well, I've had on the podcast. So I'm sure you'll be able to plant a beautiful picture in people's minds of your first crush.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I was in Year 2 and it was quite a racy time, as you can imagine, good old Year 2 days in Bathurst, and the new girl came to school.
Right.
Her name was Michaela. Now, we're friends today, Michaela and I.
Hi, Michaela.
And she had very long brown hair and she was very quiet, but seemed to hang out with me for some reason. I don't know why. I was quite a strange kid back in year 2. I was pretending I was hosting a TV show and on radio and doing circus tricks in the playground. Yeah, well, look where I am now. So, but Michaela was my first crush. I really liked her. She didn't like me that way, but I definitely had a big crush on her. Yeah.
Well, that Michaela's missing out then, really. Let's be real.
Oh, big time. Yeah. I mean, look, I'm still single. Michaela, the option's there.
You've heard it here first, Michaela. Now I'm making you go red. Well done.
Yeah. People love doing that to me, making me go red these days. It seems to be my, profession, just going red all the time after all these little comments here and there. I love it.
Oh, no, you don't. I will do my best to not make you blush. So let's tell my listeners, because we've already told your listeners how we met. Do you want to go through that before we get back into your love life? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the really cool things about social media is that you can connect with so many awesome people, and whether that be for a relationship, whether that just be for a friendship or in a work sense. And I think I kind of met you. We just happened to stumble across each other. I think you were listening to Grant and Chezzy's podcast and sort of went, I'll find out who this George guy is. And we, hit it off on social media. And here we are talking on each other's podcasts. But I'm, as I said, a huge fan of the podcast and extremely even more excited that you're a singer, because I love to sing as well.
So what style of singing do you do, George?
Yeah, so I am a musical theatre singer. I love that sort of thing.
Yep.
It's amazing. It's my first love, musical theatre. But then I kind of branch off into rock and pop, and I gave classical music a bit of a try when I was maybe mid-high school. And loved it, but I don't think it sort of was as exciting as music theatre. So, I like all sorts of genres.
So what's your favourite musical, George? What's your favourite musical? Is it hard to pick? I know it's really hard to pick.
It's the worst question. It's the greatest question, but it's the worst question to answer, right? I think at the moment, I'd have to say Hamilton would be up there.
Yeah.
It's an incredible show. And I mean, I know it's been around since 2016, but I think because it's now on Disney Plus and you can see the live show, I've just had a reignition of just, inspiration and passion for that show. It's so cool. Yeah,
the storytelling in that show is awesome. Fucking love it. Have you seen Spring Awakening?
Now, I've heard a lot about that. Is it good?
I fucking love it. It's one of my top 3 favourite musicals.
What's Spring Awakening about?
So Spring Awakening is based on a novel. Now, I know that I'm going to fuck up that detail of it, but I'm pretty sure it's based on a German novel. And it's basically about a town, teenagers in a certain period in history, and there's some really, really dark themes in it, and the music is fucking beautiful. And I think because I enjoy seeing stuff that really moves me from the inside out, that fucked with me in a good way on so many levels. I think that's why it's my favorite musical of all time. My director actually directed and starred in that musical in his musical theatre company. Yeah, a few years ago. I think it was 2010, maybe 2010. Yeah.
Is that the show with Jonathan Groff? Is he in that one?
And Leah Michelle?
Yeah.
Yes. That's
incredible. Is there a really explicit scene that takes place on stage?
Yeah, there's a rape scene, yeah.
Wow, okay. Crikey, that's pretty heavy.
There's a sex scene, they allude to a suicide, it's very graphic in a lot of ways.
Sounds
But
Very deep, yeah.
it's beautifully written. The production, I saw the production 4 times because I loved it so much, and it was beautifully done. So let's get out of musicals and back in on topic.
Well, that got deep from musical theatre, didn't it?
That was my fault. That was all me. That was my fault.
No, you're all good.
Guess what, lovers? The Catchalorette, there's always a catch, is back on stage in 2021. First up, The Mill, Adelaide Fringe Festival, from the 18th to the 28th of February, 7:30.
Tickets on sale at the Adelaide Fringe website.
From first crush, generally, and you can say no if you disagree, generally people go into high school relationships from there. Now, I like to describe high school relationships as like training wheels, because you're working out what your boundaries are, what you like, what you don't like. You don't have to be 100%, 1,000% serious in that relationship when you're in high school. Did you have training wheel relationships in high school, George?
You know, I did. I had training wheels in high school as far as relationships go. I think it's an interesting one, though, because when I talk about this to my friends, and actually I don't speak about this to my family because it can get a bit awkward, but I have kind of said to a few of my friends that it has been hard dating, especially when you're in high school, when you are a guy who likes to sing, dance, act, and you're on the radio. You're very busy, but you also kind of get this, I guess, perception that automatically, well, George is gay. And that was something that would happen from year 7 still to today, really. A lot of people still think that. And look, you know, it's understandable that people would think that. But that, for me, was a little bit upsetting, but also hard for me to get out and date girls, because a lot of girls sort of thought, well, this guy's gay. He can be my gay friend. But, you know, so it was very interesting. But sort of halfway through high school, year 10, 11, 12, I think people started to catch on that, hang on, this guy likes girls. And I decided I started dating, and it was good to see what was out there. It's still good to see what's out there, right? And because I'm still searching. I'm a single Pringle over here. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, and you learn from, I think you do learn from every relationship, whether it be an intimate relationship or a friendship, right? It's going to be a learning curve. So I learned lots of things from different people, good and bad.
Yeah, great. So when I hear you talk about those wonderful skills and things that you are passionate about when it comes to musical theatre, acting, on the radio, something that is really important in relationships is communication. And unfortunately, in Australia, there can be a stereotype that men don't communicate and women are the empaths and the communicators, right? You are at an advantage, George, with the fact that you are open with your communication, you are effective with your communication, you are articulate. That is an advantage for you and for the woman that you date, end up with, whatever, because you are ahead of the game. In most guys at 19 struggle to communicate effectively, especially with the opposite sex. So I would say that all those things that you're ticking in your skill set, fuck, the woman that you end up dating or end up with or whatever, she will not ever feel like she doesn't know where she stands with you. And fuck, man, you can sing to a girl. You can, like, dude, you have so much more advantage than the average Joe Blow who can't do shit and doesn't know how
Carla,
to work.
You're too kind.
Nah, man.
You are so kind.
It's just the truth. You've got all these skills that you can, like, on the date, you can, if you really like a girl, you can do so much more than the average dude. So I would say you've got more going for you than those silly people at school saying that you were something that you weren't.
No, that's kind of you to say, and nice to hear that, I guess, because when you have those comments thrown at you all the time, it naturally is going to make you feel low and sometimes even question, well, if people are thinking I'm this, am I this? So I can totally, see how distressing it can get to some people when these comments are flung about. And it got to a point where it was bullying, and it was just really a sad and toxic environment to be a part of. But as you grow older, you realise that you've just got to stick to what you love. And that's something that I admire about you. You kind of stick to the cabaret thing, and you are doing what you love because it's going to make you happy and the people around you happy. So you've got to create this sort of community or this ultimate team of people that are going to just build you up, and whilst you are in your happy space, if that sort of makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point you have made there, George, because I'm so much older than you. Through my experience.
What are you talking about? I thought you were 23.
Oh, look at you go. Yeah, good one. Good one, George. Nice one. Not 34, but thanks.
Close
now
enough.
I've lost my train of thought because you've sidetracked me with the compliment. Jeez, that shows how little compliments I get, George. You've completely sidetracked me.
Oh, gosh.
This is going so well. Do you think...
Maybe we could call it the compliment podcast. We can just give each other compliments. At the end, we walk out of it feeling a million times better. Maybe we should start something like that, yeah?
I think that's a good idea. You think some of the bullying was from, well, I think it would be from jealousy.
Yeah, I think it also depends on the environment in which the bullying is taking place. So Stenny's, which you mentioned in the intro, is an all-boys school.
Ooh.
And a very, very rugby and sporty and very blokey. So being a singer, being a performer, and sort of being one of a very select few people that would be into that sort of thing was a challenge in itself.
Right.
And I really tried to balance it. Like I've heard of people who they do sing and they do act, and they also play a bit of cricket and football. So I gave that a bit of a go, but football just wasn't my thing. Cricket just wasn't my thing. I just love musical theatre and performing. So there may have been an element of jealousy. Potentially, there could have been. I've never really thought of it that way. I've just always thought, well, I'm the odd one out, and it's easy to pick on this kid. He's an easy target. But I mean, look, it got better, definitely. Year 7, 8 and 9 were like hell, absolute hell. But year 10, 11, 12, it was just an upwards climb, I think, from there.
Great.
Just
That's good.
surrounding yourself with the right people and I guess the teachers as well help you out as well, because you're growing up, you're essentially becoming adults with the teachers. And you'd hope that most of your cohort were maturing, which they were. There was a few that weren't. But yeah, it turns out good in the end, which is nice.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad you've it's good to take those lessons and reflect and work out exactly what takeaways are going to be effective for you moving forward. Now let's talk about you going to an all-boys school. So one of my exes, the one I was with for the longest period of time, went to an all-boys school. He went to St. Peter's College in South Australia, which is the known for being the top school in South Australia. Would you say, if you got to choose where you went to school, would you have put yourself in an all-boys environment?
I'm going to... Look, can I put it? I'm going to put it this way, and it's a little bit different, right? If I was to, and this is very kind of presumptuous of me, and I'm very young, but if I was to ever have a son, and I've got the similar thought process I've got right now and mentality I've got right now, I probably wouldn't send my son to an all-boys school, just because there is a certain culture that is there, and you learn. I mean, it's good. You grow and you learn different things, and there's funny things that you learn, but then there's things that you just don't need to know. And I don't think at that age, when you're 16, 17, when you're quite young, there's a few things that you don't need to know. I mean, maybe I would send my son there, or I would go there if maybe it was year 7, 8, 9. And they have their own kind of campus, and then 10, 11, 12 had their own campus. But when they're all in together, I think it can be quite damaging for the younger kids, and their mentality can lead to, behavioural issues. Behavioural issues, essentially. Like it can turn into an absolute shitfest. Because...
Look, I think there's pros and cons, because I used to be a teacher. So there are pros and cons to education stuff separating the sexes. When it comes to subject-wise, that's a different thing. But I feel like my friends that have gone to single-sex schools, they have to do a catch-up in adult life on how to effectively and easily converse with the opposite sex. Like, I even still see women in their 30s who go to all-girls schools, and whenever men are around, they cannot behave normally. Yeah. So do you want to talk a little bit about what your opinion is, seeing as you were in the system and I wasn't? I've only taught in the systems of single-sex schools because I went to co-ed.
Having a social, as they would call them, it was like a disco, right, where you would go along to the local school hall and you dance along to music. And this would happen maybe 3 or 4 times a year in your lead up to year 12. And I mean, besides that, if you had a friend at the other school that was a girl and you would catch up every now and then, I mean, you were just kind of lucky. Or if you played sport with them, but there wasn't a lot of that going on really, because when it came to sport, it was all very separate, netball, footy, basketball, cricket, so it was all very separate when it comes to that, and not a lot of combining. So yeah, there's definitely an element of catch up, and you see a lot of the kids in the public system, male and female, how they interact. I mean, I could be in year 9 and compare me to another year 9 fellow at the public school system with, the both sexes there. The way they interact will be completely different to the way I interact, in the sense that, oh my God, I'm seeing a girl. Like, this is awesome. I'm going to, spruce myself up, do up my tie, put some cologne on, that sort of thing. Whereas this guy over here is just like so chill. So I think, it wasn't great being with boys all the time. It would have been nice to have a bit of experience because I'm on my gap year now and literally just starting conversations. But also in saying that, doing musicals, I was with a lot of girls. So I had that advantage against other guys in a way. So yeah, I'm kind of appreciative that some musicals that they sort of taught me the way to talk to people, anyone, boys, girls, adults, the whole lot.
Yeah, that's right. And I think touching on that, the way that you converse and digest the stuff that the Denyers talk to you about, I can't hear the difference when I'm just listening to the podcast. I can't hear the difference with age. Like you approach, because there's some heavy stuff that they've spoken about and some personal stuff that they talk about, and you come at a very mature angle. Listening to you, I would not assume that you were 19.
Oh, thank you. That's, I don't know how to take that because it's a nice thing. And sometimes I think, well, am I acting too old for my age? But
No.
I can definitely say and definitely tell you that this is genuinely me and I can't put it on. But I've always been told from a young age. I remember going into the local radio station at 10 years old, roughly, and the lady who was presenting and interviewing me at the time, she said, "Are you sure that you're not a 45-year-old man inside a 12-year-old's body?" And I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, I've just been brought up this way. This is who I am. And it does come down to my parents. They raised myself and my siblings incredibly well. And I think it's a real hats off to them because they taught me everything that I know. Yeah. Shout out to my parents. They did well. But when it comes to Grant and Shezzy in the studio, it's great. It's like, I think I described it to you off air. It's like going to the bar and having a chat with your friends, except the conversation goes, very, very deep and dirty and gritty and funny. So it's a great combination of being serious, but also being quite childish at the same time.
Yeah, the episodes are great. I really like them. I can't wait. When's the next one coming out? I've all caught up, so I don't know when they're next. When do they come out? What day?
Yeah, so what we do is we upload them on a Monday morning, 7:45 and 8 a.m. around then. So we've got heaps of episodes on the way.
Great.
Lots of naughty stuff, lots of honest stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really cathartic experience being in the room with those two. You mentioned in my podcast about the experience you had listening to the first episode and how much it helped you.
Yeah, no shit.
I know for myself that when they're talking about all of these different experiences they've had, it really helps me feel like a normal person because, and that may sound a bit weird to the listener, but like they are incredible at what they do. They are media personalities. They are very well known and recognized, but they make mistakes as well.
Yeah.
So whenever I make mistakes or I have made bad mistakes in the past, I just got to remind myself that we are all human. We all make mistakes. We all stuff up and there's going to be tough times. So I think for anybody who is feeling like they have failed at anything, that podcast is just gold. Listen to it. It's on all your podcast providers. Pop it in your ears, go for a walk, and you will end up leaving this podcast in hysterics, crying, and probably also, incredibly inspired.
And what's it called again, George?
It's all true. It's all true with a question mark. Yes, it's a fantastic. And I mean, they discuss topics and headlines that have been thrown at them over the past few years, and lots of personal things that a lot of married couples would never disclose to anyone, not even their closest friends. But they've been brave enough to sit behind the microphones and let it all out. And I think it's just a really admirable thing that they are doing.
Yeah, totally. And I love their little girls in the opening and closing songs.
Yes.
It's very cute. So cute.
Sailor and Scout, they're legends. They are very cute at the very beginning.
So let's talk about your podcast a little bit more before we get back into the dating world. What did you do to get yourself to that point?
Well, I was in commercial radio for, I think, about 4 years, and that was professionally speaking. And I was on air doing work experience and bits and pieces since I was 9 years old.
That's amazing,
So,
George.
creating content, creating content was always something that I loved, and I was always doing it. And I got to a point at the end of last year where I took a break from radio, and also with COVID coming in, it was a very strange climate at the time. Mm-hmm. So I took a break from commercial radio, and I needed to fill that gap. I needed to do something creative. I was working a retail job and just started working as a disability support worker, but I still needed something creative going on because obviously the local musical scene wasn't happening.
Yeah.
So I turned to podcasting. I was like, well, I love listening to podcasts. I'm a huge fan of the Hamish and Andy podcast, the Kyle and Jackie O podcast. What's the other one? The Bachelorette is a good one. So I was always a fan of podcasts, even back then, when the Bachelorette wasn't out. So, and I just said, you know what? Stuff it. I'll do my own podcast. And yeah, I think it was a personal thing because I was in a very different space than I'd usually been in. Finishing school, it brings on lots of weird emotions. Mm-hmm. And I thought, yeah, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to put together a podcast, and I want to educate people on the cool things that are out there in the world that need to be heard. I want to inspire people with the guests that I talk to, and I'm going to entertain them at the same time. So it was a really, a 2-month process of making sure I had enough episodes to release. So I was ahead of myself, and started releasing them, and it's had a really lovely response. It's been a really great experience to be creative during this time.
Yeah, it's a great podcast, and you've got such a array of people from different walks of life that make each episode really different, even though it's in the same framework. It's a great podcast. So make sure you get onto the Convo, people, wherever you can get your podcast. That's one that you should listen out for. So let's get into dating, George.
Love, yeah.
What has been your experience? Do you ask girls out on dates, or are you a man that's like, no, women can do the asking? Where do you, because you went to an all-boys school, I would imagine that you've got a more traditional lens on this kind of stuff. That's my assumption. Which I think is awesome. So walk me through your dating do's and don'ts and what your experiences have been.
Okay. Well, I mean, either way, if the guy asks out first, that's fine. If the girl asks out first and gets in just before the guy, that's okay as well. Mm-hmm. I think I've been the bloke who's always asked out, the first time. Sort of making that first move. But in saying that, like, I'm still young. I haven't had too many serious relationships. I've had maybe 2 serious-ish ones, as serious as they get at 19. But in saying that, they can be pretty full on, right?
Yes.
Like when 2 hearts are involved and 2 young people are in love, it can be really tough. It can
And hormones
create,
everywhere. Yeah.
oh man, absolutely. Everyone's going off at that age, right? So yeah, I mean, I think it's important to be respectful. I'm really big on that. Respect, loyal, be a listener, be a communicator. And yeah, I think they're the main ones when it comes to the do's and don'ts. Don't be in a relationship because you like the idea of a relationship.
Good man. Yep.
I think you've got to, if you're going to say you love someone, you've got to actually mean it. You've got to actually know in your heart that you are ready to say that, and also be in a position where you can somewhat sustain that. I think if you are in a position where you can't give your all, not that you have to give your all, but if you can't be a good partner, I think it's a sign that you need a bit more self-discovery. And I think for me at the moment, at this point in time in my life, I'm busy and I'm like, yeah, I mean, having someone about that can make you happy would be awesome. But at the same time, I have a whole heap of self-discovery to do.
Yeah.
I'm really keen to just keep on, seeing what's out there and exploring the world and doing things that I love before I maybe decide to settle down in a way.
Yeah, I think that's very, very smart. And I think you should keep doing that because
I think I will. Yeah.
Because too often, and I know this is a South Australian thing as well, in South Australia, people are quite pressured to quickly hurry up, find that person, get married, have kids. So I'm in my mid-30s. My friendship groups started to get married from the age of 23 to about 27, and they all started having kids in their mid to late 30s. Obviously, I did not follow that path. I nearly did. I was engaged at 21. Obviously that didn't work out, but that's another story. I think it is so important, that self-discovery, but still being open to the possibilities, because we do learn through friendships, relationships, but self-discovery and being sure within oneself. And we all evolve as we age. Like, it's not going to be, once you've got your 20s out the way, I'm done. I know exactly who I am. I'm never going to change. We all evolve as we go because life throws us many different things, and we adapt. Some people don't adapt, and then life is really difficult for those people who don't adapt and can't go with change. So I think it's really good that you are on the self-discovery path. I think that's really good. So under the dating topic as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my generation did not have the online dating apps that you guys did.
Yeah.
Did your generation do the online dating stuff whilst at school? Is that a thing, or is there an age thing on these apps? I don't even know.
Well, I don't know if my mum and dad are listening to this right now, but if they are, I'm sorry. Well, look, there is an age limit on these dating apps. I think it's 18 and over, which is fair enough.
Yeah.
I don't think any of my mates or any of the fellas in my year group, all under, during my time at school, were using these dating apps. And to be completely honest, I don't think there was a whole lot of interest either. I wasn't interested until I stopped going to school kind of thing, and just was like, well, you know, I want to meet people. I'm at the stage where I want to talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
So I got this application called Tinder. And, you know, it's got a bit of a reputation for not necessarily going out and meeting people, maybe something else. But I got it for the right reasons and just to meet people. And I have made lots of friends out of it, funnily enough. People from all over Australia.
Wow.
And it's cool. I mean, people might frown upon it, but I think it's kind of cool that you can just meet random people that then become a friend in a way. I don't think it's the most healthy way of dating and doing other activity. So yeah, I think it's good. But no, I don't think many of the guys were on it. I think a lot of them did start when they finished school. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I think it's a very healthy way to look at it, and maybe it's a generational thing, but there's been a couple of times where I've been on it over the last 4 years or whatever, and I've only ever lasted maybe a couple of days because it's just not been a positive experience. Yeah. It's sorry, I was just going to say. No, go ahead.
In saying that, like, it's true. There's a lot of strange people on these applications and a lot of things that you don't need to see or experience or hear, because if you are a sensitive person like myself, it sometimes isn't the greatest place to be because you get some very hateful comments. So I had the application for a while and deleted it after all of those things started to arise. So yeah, I mean, if you are up to the idea of meeting people, go for it. But there is going to be a lot of strange stuff at the same time that's not going to necessarily be for you.
Correct. So on that topic, then obviously you are not the type of dude to send unsolicited dick pics. I'm going to assume that you're not that dude.
Yeah, no, I am not that kind of guy. I think it's a little bit odd. Why would you do that to somebody that you don't necessarily know? And they may not appreciate it at all. They might, I mean, let's be real, they might throw up. You're going to cause them some kind of, real panic. They might have a panic attack. They'll be like, oh my goodness, like what is happening? I think it's a little bit odd, but each to their own. People do strange things and I'm not going to judge them for it. But personally, I just can't see myself doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not. 98% of women that I've spoken to about this, it's where do you go from there? Once you send that, unless both parties are just looking for sex and whatever, like you said, each to their own. But if you are having a genuine conversation, trying to get to know somebody properly, and then all of a sudden in the middle of talking about the history of Egypt, they send you a dressed up dick, like that's not.
Yeah, that's taking an Egypt conversation to a whole new level, isn't it, really?
It's not what you want.
No, it's not. But, I mean, look, it's funny because people come up to me a lot on the streets and say, oh, are you the guy from Grant and Shezzy's podcast that has blow-up dolls and all of these weird toys underneath your bed? And I'm like, yeah, no, that's me. That's exactly how I'd like to be addressed. And it's funny because people genuinely think I'm that kind of guy. And I want to say it here that I am not some sexual deviant kind of redhead 19-year-old. I am actually fairly sensible.
Yeah, the bloody is. They're giving you a bad rap. I bet you
I know.
somebody that you date down the line will have listened to the podcast and they'll assume that you have got all these boys ready to go, and they'll be coming ready and raring to use them with you, and they'll just walk in and be like, what the fuck is this? There's nothing here.
Yeah. George is such a letdown. He doesn't actually have blow-up dolls. But no, it's funny to be recognised that way, because for so many years I was recognised as the most sweet, innocent school captain of a school, and here I am now being recognised as this guy from the podcast that, has a dungeon, which I don't. But anyway, it's fun. The things we do for showbiz, right?
Yeah.
Guess what, lovers? The Catchalorette, there's always a catch, is back on stage in 2021. First up, The Mill, Adelaide Fringe Festival, from the 18th to the 28th of February, 7:30.
Tickets on sale at the Adelaide Fringe website.
So I would imagine being a school captain in an all-boys school would attract quite a lot of attention from the females of the corresponding school that you generally, there's a relationship between two schools or whatever when it comes to single-sex schools. So how did you swat all the vulvas in that situation, George?
It's funny because a lot of people said to me, just you look out, mate, they're going to be coming after you. And I was like, oh, hang on, this might be all right. But it was definitely not that. Everyone's busy studying in Year 12. Everybody is trying to figure out their future and what uni they're going to go to. So I had no attention at all, which was
I don't believe that.
To be completely honest. Oh, okay. Maybe I had, look, to make myself sound good and feel good about myself, maybe there was some ones. There probably was. But, I mean, yeah, I'm going to sound like a real dick here, but I was just very busy studying and helping organise the chocolate toss in the playground of the weekend. So
you had too much going on. You had too much going on.
Oh, big time, yeah.
So would you say then, have you experienced heartbreak or have you inflicted heartbreak by breaking up with somebody?
I have definitely experienced heartbreak.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said earlier, I've only really been in two sort of serious-ish relationships. And, you know, it's hard because each person has their own side of the story and complications with that person. But yeah, I think my first ever heartbreak was a huge blow. I really felt it when it happened because, as I said earlier, when you are invested in somebody and there are young hearts involved and, as you mentioned, hormones and all that kind of thing, it can turn out to be really, really messy and hard. And that's how it did turn out. And yeah, I mean, I've learnt from that and learned how to be a better person. Pardon me, a better person in a relationship. But no, I don't think I've ever inflicted heartbreak. Maybe I have when I was ignoring all the people during Year 12. But other than that, I would never deliberately, create heartbreak within a relationship because I know what it's like to have that happen to you, and it's a horrible feeling. I think. But also, like, you got to. If something's not right for you, I think it makes sense to break it off. And it's not being nasty. It's just being fair on yourself and fair on the other person. I think if it's not feeling right, if you need more time to yourself, well, yeah, I mean, say the magic words and just be friends or something like that. But yeah. And it's complicated because everyone's different and everybody's got their own way of thinking when it comes to relationships and dating and that sort of stuff. And I'm still forming my own opinions on what that may be. So, yeah, I have been heartbroken is the short answer.
So what would be your heartbreak tips for people out there to get yourself out of heartbreak and into some sort of emotional balance again?
It sounds really simple, and it's like, hang on, how do you do that? But look after yourself and do a thing called self-care. It's literally as simple as doing the things that you love. It gets your mind off all of that mess that has just occurred. Also, speaking, I think, is great. I spoke to family. I spoke to friends at the time. I just love to talk. And I think, talking can really change a lot of things within yourself, can help you move on from certain events in life. So just a whole heap of self-care. Treat yourself. I mean, go to KFC, go to Macca's and just get yourself a lot of food and eat ice cream. I do that even when I'm not heartbroken. So just do it anyway. And talk. Yeah. Talk, eat, ice cream, family, friends, just all of that stuff. You got to care for yourself. You got to look after yourself, and because you got to be selfish sometimes. You got to be selfish, and you got to do what's right for you. So I would really recommend doing that. And you see on Facebook a lot of these posts going around: take your friends away from the pub. Don't get them into drugs when they're dealing with hard times. Drugs and alcohol is not going to fix your problems. It's going to create more problems. It's going to hurt you even more. Yes. So it's just, it's such a culture. People get broken up with, and then they go to the pub and drink themselves till they're blind. And it's sad, and I can totally understand why they would do that. I definitely see that you're in that pain. You just want to not know about it. You want to forget about everything. So here I go. I'm just going to down all of these beers and just have a blinder. But there are other ways to deal with it that are much healthier than that. And I learnt that luckily early on in the stage. So I'm glad that I know how to deal with certain things like that.
That's brilliant, George, because you've touched on something really important there about drugs and alcohol, and especially around young adult age, as you are. That's when habits with drugs and alcohols can begin. Usually it begins a lot earlier, unfortunately. But when you go through that big change in your life, for example, with a heartbreak, that can be the start of a pattern with, okay, I feel really sad. I want it to go away. I'm going to drink. Okay, the next time when something not as dramatic happens, but you feel a bit sad, you got to have another, night of fucking oblivion. And then sometimes you can get to a stage where you have wrecked your body so much that it is hard to find any sort of healthy balance. And then as you get older, it's really hard to change habits that you have formed in your younger years. So that's a really important message, I think, George, to tell people. I'm glad you've brought that up. That's really good.
Yeah, I think in the end, we all just want happiness. We all just want acceptance and to be feeling okay in the moment. So, yeah, that's why people go towards these things. It then becomes an addiction, which is really, really sad, and it can do a whole lot more damage. So, and I'm no expert on this kind of stuff. I just know from experience and common sense now that it's important to look after your mates, look after yourself, and don't go too silly when it comes to that sort of thing. There is great help out there when you are going through a tough time.
I think it is so important to talk about this, though, George, because we have such a culture in our country where the youth do get absolutely fucking blind on the regular, and then that becomes something that's really hard to change down the track. So, yeah, again, I'm really glad that you've brought that up. So let's steer the truck or train or whatever transport you want to imagine in your head as we're talking. For our last little bit, would you say that you see love as two halves coming together as a whole, or two individuals that are happy within themselves and their lives coming together as a team? What would you say you would resonate with? And why?
I think it's, definitely for me, the second option. You've got to be happy within yourself. Yep. They've got to be happy within themselves to come together. And I love the idea of team. It just sort of reminded me then that that's what it is. It is a team. When it comes to relationships, you've got to be a team. It's not one person over the other. So, I think that is so important because, one, they are both comfortable in themselves, and that means they know that they can help each other out. They know that they can feel comfortable being helped out in situations. And also when you are comfortable in yourself, I guess you're not going to be putting on any fake walls or any masks in a sense. You are the genuine you that is going to be waking up every day, seeing this person. It's the same. There's no acting going on. There's no little tricks going on. It's just genuine love, which, I mean, I've yet to have that kind of thing with another person. Yeah. But
you and me both.
In my mind, when I really think about it, that's what it's all about. It's about creating bloody awesome moments, having a cracker time, and just, enjoying life, because that's what it's all about. We can't be stressed about, you spoke to this guy and I'm not going to talk to you now because you're talking to this guy, and, you looked at that girl. Like, let's just all be friends. Let's just get on. I think that's just my cry. We all need to accept one another. We're all different. We're all unique. We're all beautiful in our own way. Let's just love. Let's just, especially during this time, because COVID's been a tough thing for a lot of people, businesses and health as well. A lot of people have certainly suffered from it, and it's horrible. So people are realizing now that we need to look out for each other. We need to just be there for each other, because you just never know. You'd never know. We didn't know a pandemic was coming up this year. We just never know when anything could happen. So hold on to those people that you love most and just be there for them whenever they
tell them and tell people that you cherish how much you do cherish them. That's beautiful.
I think so. I'm feeling all light and bubbly and happy. It's good.
So can you tell the listeners where they can find you and your podcast, please, sir?
Yeah, so the Convo podcast, it is available on all of your favourite podcast providers. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, all of those applications out there. And we've got the socials at theconvo.podcast. We're also on Facebook. And if you're kind of interested in just seeing what Redhead George is up to and just what he's getting up to in everyday life, you can check me out. I'm on Instagram at @_GSarge or something like that. But just type in George Sargent, I should be there. Nothing too interesting, just me doing a few photos in the studio with my cool mates, Grant and Shezzy Denya, just all that sort of fun stuff.
Yeah, low key. Just some low key peeps. Yeah.
No, I mean, look, they're all equal. Hey, we're all coming into this world the same way, and most of us are going out the same way as well. So we're all equal. We all have the same rights. We all have the right to talk and say what we want to say. So yeah, it's great. It's good.
Thank you so much for coming on my podcast today, George. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to us having many more conversations.
Definitely, Carla. We'll have to get together and sing a song sometime.
Yeah, yes. Good idea.
That'd be brilliant.
Good
Wonderful.
idea.
Well, no, it's been a great pleasure to be on your podcast. Thank you very much for having me. It's my first ever podcast I've been interviewed on, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I wish you all the best for the rest of the year in 2021. Lots of exciting things coming your way.
Yeah, same to you, dude. I'm so excited. I feel good about 2021 for both of us.
Yeah, let's kick it. Let's have a mad time, yeah?
Peace out, dude.
Awesome. See you, Carla.
The Catch-A-Lorette with friends near and far, from heartache to catfish and sex toys. The Catch-A-Lorette and friends. See you next time if you dare.
Bank of the West is offering the 1% for the Planet checking account. It gives back 1% of the account's net revenue to the planet at no cost to you. There's no monthly service charge with any deposit per statement, and there's no minimum balance required. The 1% for the Planet checking account, only from Bank of the West. Learn more at bankofthewest.com/1%. Additional conditions apply. Member FDIC.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.